Hello, this is Victor Davis Hanson for the Daily Signal. The Democratic Party, after their loss of the presidency in 2024, and they were not able to take back any of the congressional seats, and they don't control either the House or the Senate, they ran a postmortem, an autopsy. What went wrong? Now, they didn't really divulge what they found, but I think we all know what it was because it's leaked out in various manifestations. They feel that the white working class, that demographic that used to go for John F. Kennedy and even Bill Clinton, but was a solid Roosevelt, Truman, Democratic group, Union, and the middle working class in general, not just the white working class, Hispanics, blacks, but the working class. They had lost that, and they wanted to know why, and they found out that their message, and I guess I could be as bold to say open borders, illegal immigration, the trans issue, radical green energy at the expense of fossil fuels, indecision or appeasement abroad, signified by the Afghanistan disaster of 2021, et cetera, were 70 issues, and they were on the 30 side. So what did they do? They said, well, Joe Biden won in 2020 because we used him as a wax and effigy. We presented him. We didn't really present him. He was in the basement the whole campaign. We didn't let him out. But we presented him. We constructed him. We rebooted him as old Joe Biden from Scranton, the working man hero, Catholic, tough guy, and we won. And then when he got in, he was cognitively challenged, so we were able to run the most radical agenda in history since the Roosevelt administration. Now, we can still do that and get our radical agenda through in 2028 or in the midterms, but we've got to get a Joe Biden-like artifice. And so what happened was they had a problem, especially when if you look at the string of pejoratives that started with Barack Obama, but then in 2016 was continued by Hillary Clinton and emblemized by Joe Biden. I mean, it was very hard to reclaim that rubric, that demographic, because besides not being on the issues with them, they were insulting them. Obama called them the clingers. For Hillary Clinton, they were the irredeemables and the deplorables. For Joe Biden, they were the dregs, they were the garbage, they were the chumps. Remember that? Chumps. And so they said in this report, and the Democrats said, is we're going to get left-wing people, of course, but we're going to hide their left wing with a veneer. We're going to get working people. So everybody who's going to run, you have to reboot yourself. So we saw Pete Buttigieg. Remember him? He couldn't open his mouth but talking about how brilliant he was, how sanctimonious he was, how self-righteous. He knew all these languages. He looked sort of like a pale professor, and he talked like one. Nobody cares whether he speaks Finnish or not, but he let all that stuff be known. So they said, Pete, it's not going to work if you want to run. So all of a sudden he's turned up now with a beard. He wears a tractor cap, and he has a flannel shirt. And he's old Pete Buttigieg from Indiana. I don't think it's going to work, but that you can see what's going on. And then there was Tim Walz. Now, he was a sort of a bumbling, I'll be candid, a bumbling fool in Minnesota. He oversaw that great $9 billion theft by the Somali community of federal, local, and state funds. But during the campaign with Kamala Harris, and afterwards, when for a brief moment he thought he had presidential aspirations, he talked about hunting. He liked to hunt. He wore a vest, a hat. He talked about all the soft drinks that he devoured, like he was a working guy. He said that he had a pickup truck, and he could not very many people could change the oil. It was completely phony. It came out false. It reinforced the idea that he was buffoonish, but it showed you what the Democratic Party was trending to. And then I think they came up and said, you can't change these people. You can't turn Pete Buttigieg into a working man. You can't turn Tim Walz, radical message, and then paste it over with Tim Walz, the duck hunter. So we need different candidates. We need left-wing candidates, but they have to be more authentic, and they have to be pretty much unknown to the people. So they started searching, and they came up with some. One was Mr. Tallarico from Texas. He was an evangelical minister. Now, he did go to Harvard, and he did say crazy things like God is non-binary, and we've got to go after the billionaires, and they're the people ruining Texas. And he did say something that they didn't quite vet him. He said that white males are the greatest terrorist threat in the United States. But all that said, they packaged him as a Christian fundamentalist preacher. They didn't realize that when he talked, he sounded more like a Central American liberation theology radical, which he is. But the idea was in Texas, if you presented a Democratic white male as a evangelical Christian and you just kind of hid the social media history, we could pass him off as a effective candidate. And maybe we'll see how he does. He's won the Texas Senate primary in the Democratic Party over the racial essentialist Jasmine Crockett. They had a better tact when they went to Maine. They got a guy, Graham Plattner. Now, he grew up in a very upscale family. He went to the Hotchkiss prestigious prep school. But at some point in his career, he decided that he was a man of the people. And he's currently an oyster man. He's been a harbor master. He's been a bartender. This all just thrilled the Democrats. Now remember, this is the party that not long ago called them deplorables and clingers and chumps. Now they needed that veneer. That doesn't mean they want to change the radical message, which turns off the middle class, just to get the veneer. So they've got him, and he has a beard, and he's a working guy. He wears a tractor hat. And it was all going well, and then they looked at his social media, because he's supposed to represent the white working class. And he said that the white rural Americans are stupid. That's what he said, stupid. And then it turned out he had a tattoo, which was that was even greater. Tattoo, he's a man of the people. But unfortunately, it was a Totenkopf tattoo, death's head. And it was the exact insignia that Hitler's worst of the worst, the Eisengruppen wore. That is, people who were in special units of the SS, Waffen-SS, pretty bad, the worst of the worst. And they were often assigned to extermination camps to facilitate the Holocaust. So why would he put that insignia that they wore on their collar, as well as some of the SS divisions? It didn't make sense. He had to try to redo the tattoo, and anyway, but you can see where they're going. It's going to be very hard because their hatred of the middle class pops up everywhere. Not long ago, Joy Behar said, well, Trump, somebody must have voted for him, but Trump's voters are not well educated. In fact, the Heartland Institute ran a survey not too long ago that people that listened to talk radio on the political issues were better informed than the people on the left. Remember Mark Caputo? You might not. He was the CNN reporter that went to a Trump rally and said one person has more teeth, meaning I guess himself, than everybody at this rally, as if the white working class was toothless, poor, stupid. Jimmy Kimmel got a lot of praise and criticism. He recently made fun of Mark Wayne Mullen, the new Homeland Secretary, because he said, can you imagine? He's a plumber. Aside from the fact that plumbers are skilled, they're very necessary, and they're often quite brilliant to figure out the labyrinth under your house. But he reduced all the things that Mark Wayne Mullen had done. He'd been a congressman for 10 years. He's a U.S. senator. He turned his family plumbing business into largest or one of the largest plumbing services companies in all of Oklahoma. But to the snob, Jimmy Kimmel, he's a plumber. Maybe the worst was David Letterman. You remember him when he said that Sarah Palin, and they remember Maureen Dowd, all of these people made fun of her. They made fun of her white, poor background, that she was from Alaska, her accent. And I think at one point Letterman said maybe she's going to dress up like a sleazy airline hostess. That's pretty bad. Airline hostesses are pretty great people. But then he said something else. And then maybe her daughter, who was 14, Willow, I think her name was, will get pregnant by Alex Rodriguez in the Yankees dugout. So what I'm getting at is they're so imbued with hatred, and they're so artificial in their ways to manufacture an appeal to a demographic they now conclude they can't win without, that they're ridiculous. The white working class is not looking for somebody that looks like them. Look at Donald Trump. He's a millionaire Manhattan billionaire Manhattan. Now at Palm Beach in a mansion. They voted for him. What the white working class wanted was somebody who said, you didn't do well under globalization. You weren't in the part of the bicoastal elite, manufacturing, assembly, natural resource extraction, development, farm. You didn't do well, and we're here to make sure that we have an economy that works for you, and be honest about it, and then not deride them. And by the way, being a college graduate these days doesn't really mean much. It means that you're going to be in debt, you're not going to be that well educated, and your hubris or arrogance about having a degree is not going to be well-founded. Bottom line, Democrats, they can't get away from the fact they're on the 30% of these hot-button issues. They're losing the white working class, and they will not change their ideology. Instead, they want to change their appearance, their veneer, their facade. It's not going to work. Thank you very much, Victor Davis Hanson, for the Daily Signal. Thank you for tuning in to the Daily Signal. Please like, share, and subscribe to be notified for more content like this. You can also check out my own website at victorhanson.com and subscribe for exclusive features in addition.